NASCAR has finished up its 2-day testing session at Phoenix for the short tracks, and mufflers being put on the cars for the Clash in a couple of weeks. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host, Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR's test at Phoenix that was completed today, a 2-day test. I also want to talk a little bit about NASCAR's official tequila of NASCAR, a new sponsor coming in, a few new sponsors coming into NASCAR over the last few days. I want to talk a little bit about that at the end of the show. Let's talk about the main topic right now, obviously, which is going to be the Phoenix test that we've seen over the last 2 days. A lot of the news I'm going to talk about today came from Bob Pockrass. I want to say, if you have not followed him yet on Twitter or don't follow him on social media, please do so. He's a great news source. He's been covering this test over the last 2 days. He's really been the guy, I think, I've been getting all the information from. It was not covered on television. Really, no other reporter's been covering it like Bob Pockrass, so he's done a fantastic job. I just want to say that, as I get into this, that most of the news, most of the interviews I'll be basing this off of is from Bob Pockrass on Twitter, which is very important. He does a fantastic job covering NASCAR. But let's talk about it. The Phoenix test, trying to fix the short track package a little bit. Last year we went into the NextGen era, this new race car, and I think a lot of fans were kind of excited about how good the racing was, especially on the mile-and-a-half bank tracks. Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta were pretty good. The mile-and-a-half tracks were pretty good. A lot of people said it was the best Coke 600 they'd ever seen. I was at the Southern 500. That was a pretty good race with the next-gen car. One of the better ones that I've seen in the last few years. So definitely a lot of positives with the next-gen after the 2022 season. But there was a big downside with the next gen car, and it was a pretty big one, and that was the road courses and the short tracks and really the flat ovals. St. Louis had a lot of dirty air play a role. Phoenix wasn't too good. That is the championship race. You don't want your championship race being a bunch of stalled out cars. So NASCAR went into it. They're trying to make some changes, trying to make it better to where the drivers can maybe pass a little bit more, run a little bit different lines, and not be stalled out behind each other and kind of running in a circus is what some drivers like to use. But when we go back to Martinsville, back in April, I was actually at that race. That was kind of really when we looked at this and said, uh-oh, there is a big problem with these cars, and that is dirty air, and that is stalling out at the short tracks and road courses. Martinsville was nothing happened. I mean, it was not a lot of passing throughout the field throughout the entire night. I think there was one lead change that was on pit road under caution. So, and there wasn't much passing going on throughout the field. Now that was probably the worst display. To give credit, that was probably the worst display we had. Bristol also, another one of those big races. Not a lot of passing, riding around in a train. Look, we don't want drivers to be completely, the entire race to be depleted off where you qualify and where you come out on pit road. That's not a good thing. So I'm glad that they're trying to fix that problem because it's a big one. A lot of the schedule is short tracks and road courses. You got Richmond, Bristol, Martinsville, a bunch of road courses on the schedule now. So we obviously want to fix that. And we got tracks like North Wilkesboro coming up. We got the North Wilkesboro All-Star Race. That's going to be a big event. We don't want the car stalling out in no action whatsoever at North Wilkesboro coming up in the spring. We don't want in the summertime on July 4th weekend the Chicago Street Course, which I know there's some backlash from fans, but we don't want that big event for Chicago with probably going to be a lot of guys watching, a lot of people watching that event. We don't want that to be a bunch of stalled out cars, so I'm really glad to see NASCAR taking an effort here to kind of fix the problem by doing some testing at Phoenix. So the first thing they did was obviously try to shorten up the spoiler. I believe it was 4 inches. They knocked it down to 2, knocked it down to 1. There were some talks of taking the spoiler off. From what I saw, they never took it completely off in the test. A few other things. Apparently, they took some pieces off of the bottom diffuser, the rear diffuser that's underneath the race car, where the air goes completely underneath the race car and it comes out the back end of the car. And that was really good to see as well. I saw a lot of drivers talk about how that was very effective. A lot of them said that the spoilers were effective in single car runs, but once you got in the pack, once they raced together, it didn't make much of a difference, but the diffuser did, so that's good. Glad to see a lot of NASCAR drivers speak out about that, trying to kind of fix the problem. There was definitely a lot of positive out of the test. I saw Brad Keselowski gave an interview talking about kind of the same thing. It seems like every driver similarly said the same thing after the test, that hey, it's the spoiler's good in single car runs, but in the pack it doesn't make much of a difference. But when you mess with the diffuser, you took some parts of the diffuser off, that helped a little bit. And there's been some talks about taking that diffuser completely off, which I wouldn't be against. I think that'd be cool to see. Apparently that would be cheaper too. So I know that's definitely at the back of everybody's mind. Just take the rear diffuser completely off, and that could fix a lot of problems as well. I know there's some gear ratios that NASCAR is still looking at to try to change it. So talking about packages is really weird because it's kind of hard to explain because it's so much that you try to get out there. But I hope I'm doing the best job I can explaining all the packages that are, and all the changes that they're trying to do with the next gen for those short tracks. But overall, they're trying to make changes to the short track racing, trying to make it to where the cars are able to pass more easily, to where if you're running a different line or running a line that maybe is a bit better, if your car's a little bit faster, it doesn't take as long to get around somebody and you can actually do it, which at tracks like Phoenix and Martinsville, we didn't see that much of. It was kind of impossible to pass earlier this year. So that's kind of what I was trying to get into there. So that was definitely good. But, Joey Logano, like I said, he said there needs to be no rear diffuser, and drivers definitely unleashed their opinions, and that was a lot of fun to hear. So let's talk about one more thing that's going to be really interesting about this test. NASCAR tested mufflers on the Cup cars. I know there's never been mufflers on NASCAR cars since I've been watching. I don't know if there's ever been NASCAR cars, maybe way back in the glory days, where there was mufflers on NASCAR Cup cars. It's definitely something we haven't seen in a really long time. If it has happened, it's done to try to quiet down the race cars a little bit. Apparently, they were a bit louder. The NextGen cars were a bit louder at tracks like Martinsville and stuff like that at the shorter tracks last year. Heard it was definitely really loud, louder than usual. Not too sure. I actually went to a race last year at Martinsville with my uncle, and he actually left the track for a little bit because it was hurting his ear so bad, and he had the big earmuffs on. So maybe it is something that needs to be considered. I listened to Bob Pockrass's videos that he posted online. I could tell the difference, but I couldn't tell how loud each one was and the difference between how loud each one was. But they sounded pretty cool with the mufflers on. It looks like, according to Bob Pockrass here, that they're gonna use the mufflers at the Clash, and they're gonna use them at the Chicago street race. So obviously 2 races in the middle of a city. Obviously that's LA, and then of course the Chicago street race. It looks like they're going to try it. There is a concern with putting the mufflers on. Christopher Bell said in his interview with Bob Pockrass, of course, like I said, he's the only one really covering this event that I've been seeing. Christopher Bell said that it's generating more heat in the car, and we already know that there's been a lot of heat generated in these cars in the past. I don't think that's a good thing. Obviously, NASCAR will continue to look at that to try to limit the amount of heat being pushed into the car. Obviously, adding a muffler doesn't help that situation. I think that's kind of something we all knew going into it, so hopefully NASCAR can find a way to fix that. And it's only 2 races a year. We got the LA Clash in February. That's not going to be too crazy. That's a fairly short race, and I think the Chicago street race will probably be a fairly quick, short race as well. So it won't be like the Coke 600 where they'll be, heating, sitting inside an oven for 4 to 5 hours. So that's definitely a positive as well, but they still need to look into that to try to fix that. And this is another thing that's a bit concerning. The Coliseum race is just a couple of weeks away, just a few days away, less than 2 weeks away, a week and a half away now. Hopefully they get all this stuff figured out before we take the green flag in the Clash on February 5th. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that. So that's all there is to talk about after the Phoenix test. I hope I did a good job explaining it. Like I said, the packages and the rule changes and all that can be really difficult to explain sometimes on camera, but I hope I did a good job doing so. But let's talk about NASCAR's first ever official tequila. Cabo Wabo Tequila is NASCAR's now their official tequila of NASCAR, official partner. This is the first official tequila of NASCAR ever. You see Adam Stern here reported their plans include sampling, responsible drinking messaging, water bottle give out, sweepstake concerts, concessions, and digital content. That's definitely exciting to see. I think this is kind of a good thing for NASCAR. We've seen a few more sponsors come in. I know Kyle Busch has gotten another sponsor over the last few days on his race car that he's going to be racing a few races with. So good to see these sponsors starting to come in as we get closer to Daytona. But I think that's pretty exciting right there to have an official tequila of NASCAR. That's kind of cool. Hopefully they set up some tents around the racetrack, let you taste some. I know they said they'll be passing out water bottles. That's obviously good at some of the hotter racetracks when we go in the summertime. with water bottle give out, sweepstakes concerts. That was just a pretty good thing. That's pretty cool to see. Once again, anytime you have more sponsors coming into anything, especially NASCAR, especially the sport of NASCAR, which is so sponsor dependent, it's exciting and good to see. So that's great. Glad they're coming in as a partner. It should be a lot of fun. I hope I see their tent. Hope when you're walking around the racetrack, you see them, which would definitely be really good to see. So that's really all there is to talk about on this Wednesday night. So once again, we have just a few more days until the Clash at the Coliseum. I'll obviously be doing a race review after that, and maybe do a pre-race or a pre-season video before that. So that's it. That's really all there is to talk about. And of course, if you like the video, like and subscribe, and let's get rowdy.